All right, hello everyone. This is Betterment Broadcast. I'm your host, Rep Raven. Welcome to the 106th broadcast. That's right. Let's switch to our fantastic, super mega, ultra good PDF. There it is. Brand spanking new for you, wonderful people listening live, and those who listen in future times. Could be a year from now, maybe 500,000 years. Who knows? But know that on this day, we are trying to help Black people. That's right, because Black people need help. Bottom Elsie, here we go. What's this fantastic message I'm getting? Yep, a whole lot of messages a bit too late now. Is what it is. All right, now let's see what we can do. So let's go through the script because that's what we do every time we start a show. Now remember, this is some important information that feel free to take for yourself when you're trying to help Black people. It's very important to understand this. This could be a mantra. This could be something, your pillar that you lean off. I find it very helpful. Some controversy in some places, but not too controversial in others. And then when it comes to working as a collective with only Black people on matters that benefit Black issues, Black progression, or Black ownership, Black people are collectively inadequate. That's right. So unfortunately, when it comes to those things I just mentioned, we struggle. We're heavily underdeveloped. Hence why we need to have this broadcast. Anyway, next mantra, next important information is individually, you might find a non-Black person who shows some kind of camaraderie towards Black people. However, collectively, Black people have no friends. We shall be using what we're going to be doing as well. Maybe when we start having the topics, we'll try to collate how every single topic seems to be connected to one or all three of these three. I don't know what we call them, mantra statements. We'll come with a sexy word that for branding purposes, but these three very important. Oh yeah, and last but by no means least, constructive Black man with constructive Black woman makes a constructive Black family. There you go. Those three lines there will help you navigate throughout the interweb and the digital, physical, spiritual realm to help Black people because Black people need help. That's right. Anyway, so we usually send the link out. You don't have to join. Usually the show is about half an hour to an hour, and if people jump on, it goes on from 2 hours to maybe 3 if we got the time, and it's it's just going really well. But you don't have to. But if you do jump in, we do ask you, please understand we want you to practice the 4D values. Now, what are the 4D values? I shall tell you: discipline, dedication, and dignity and discernment. So do those. Also, we cannot use any kind of like strong language. It'd be very helpful. I try to even edit out strong language from the videos we play, but sometimes we can't because of the nature where it comes from. But yeah, if we can, try to keep it as constructive as possible. If you can, that's the idea. All right, so definitely no derogatory language if possible. Thank you very much. So what is Black Betterment? I hear you say, well, Black Betterment is Black people helping Black people on Black issues for betterment. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. All right, so Black Betterment is a lifestyle. So this broadcast promotes a lifestyle. Funny word, this lifestyle, because we shall be tackling some other lifestyles today. Nice segue there. So we shall be, but remember, the only lifestyle that we care about here is Black Betterment. Black people helping Black people on Black issues. That's right. That's right. That's not wrong. All right. So copyright claim on section 107, blah, 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 blah. We're going to be showing some video that's not ours. We try to blackify them to make sure the algorithms don't pick them up, and also it looks as creatively connected to what we're doing here. But generally, we're borrowing content from others so we can do case studies. That's what we do. Mm-hmm. If you have time, please feel free to follow the Black Betterment Instagram page. I'm putting it up here now. Do us a favor and yourself a favor by following that. Would be nice. Would be nicer than nice to follow that. So if you get some time, please do it. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so now we're on to today's fantastic super mega topics, I should say, to which we have 3. All right, so as you know, or maybe don't know, every week we're doing a Queen, it's a Queen focus. That's what it's called. And the 4th one this time, they don't have to literally be queens. So you could say all Black women are queens, which is good. But generally, it doesn't have to be a literal queen in ancient times, even modern times. It could be just a constructive Black woman who's very done valuable things for the community. But we want to focus on them. We also want to try to get more Black women to speak live if possible. We're going to focus on Queen Amanirenas. I'm saying that wrong. Amanirenas, yeah, Queen from the Empire of Kush. Today, got a video for us to play 6 minutes or so. So we're gonna for a couple of weeks away. We're gonna focus and start with something nice and positive, history of Black queens, all that good stuff. But then we're gonna move on to can Black trans women speak for Black women's issues? On Black issues. Very important topic. Now, once again, as a man, I can't answer that. I can't really answer. A big up, brother Kel. A great support. He also gave us the list of the queens to cover, so a great contributor there. What I'm saying, yeah, I can't. It's not really my place to necessarily say, like, for example, the whole transgender toilet stuff doesn't really impact men too much because women find themselves in men's toilets all the time with children or just whatever. But I guess it is an issue for the women. So it's your issue. But now I've noticed, and I'll tell you how I got there in a minute. But just the concept of trans women speaking for women, is that okay? Is that okay? You let us know. And final, and but by no means least, why is it important to remember Black people are alone in Black challenges? The reason I say that is you might not have seen it. In fact, let me open because I write people's names down because I tend to forget it because I'm a bad person. Give me 17 seconds to find this fantastic super mega. There we go. It's right there. Click, 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 click. Here we go. So what was it? Yeah. So I saw a thing floating where Don Lemon, he's on. I think it was a CNN, and what it was is he was trying to talk about reparations. It was a very important topic. But he's talking to a person who I think they identified her as a representative. I'll see it's on the video. I forgot what they read, but anyway, I found the name. I think it was like Hillary Fordwich, but she represents a bigger collective of people, or thought really. So it's not really her that's the interest, but it's more so he was trying to talk about reparations. She managed to kind of flip it onto Black people. So just so we can just study as a case study about that. So we'll go for that. But let's start how we mean to begin, and that is let's find a fantastic thing about Queen Amanirenas. I'm saying her name wrong, but what are you going to do, man? So, his brother here, he's got his own channel. Please follow. He's very sultry, smooth kind of voice dude. Maybe too much in time, but no, I mean that in a good way. But yeah, he's got a show, a page to follow it.
What up, African world? It's Team Air, and I'm back at it with another video of African history, culture, and worldview. And today, I wanted to speak about the greatest queen in African history.
Oh, greatest queen?
Queen Amanirenas.
I said it right. Amanirenas. I follow his culture worldwide. Great logo. Wonderful.
And as always, if you want to support the home team, you can do so on patreon.com.
Go and give him all your money.
I have some new rewards for you guys, so be sure to check that out. Also, go to afrographics.com, a website where you can find unique illustrative infographics summarizing African history.
There you go. So go there at once.
All links to Patreon, Afrographics, and home team merchandise are in the description box below. I personally found it strange that we in the diaspora never really spoke much about Queen Amanirenas. I can understand why popular culture may not, but within our own circles, it would seem as though she would come up more frequently. She tends to be overshadowed by more popular queens from the continent such as Nefertiti, Hatshepsut, or, unfortunately, Cleopatra. Our own communities do a little better with focusing on other queens like Queen Nzinga.
We covered Queen Nzinga last week, I think, or maybe it was the week before. My memory's not as good as it used to be.
Or even Queen Tai.
We haven't done Queen Tai yet. I'm sure that we're on the list for us to go through. I believe Queen Tai was Imhotep. No, I said Imhotep, not Imhotep. What's the brother they did their reconstruction all wrong recently? Come on, first one to who's Queen Tai's son? Famous guy. He's the most famous. He's got a famous gold statue. Get it right, and she's also won when we ruled. But anyway, if you know her son, get 10 points. Go, go, go. That's a competition. Let's carry on listening.
But given the grand...
I'm going to do that as well. I'm going to do competitions as we play through. That would be good.
And accomplishment...
But you won't win anything.
...of Queen Amanirenas, I thought she would be more recognized.
Queen Amanirenas. Let's see if you can remember that name. Very important queen of Kush. Very important queen, Queen Amanirenas.
And as the title of this video suggests, I believe she's the greatest queen from the African continent.
Is she the greatest queen? Let us know who the greatest queen is for you. If you're in the forum, feel free to do it now, or you could do it in a future time on the actual comment section. Why not? Why not wait and do research? But either way, post it now.
Not only that, but I also think she's one of the greatest queens in world history altogether. I even created an animated video summing up her story because it's one of the most triumphant stories of an African queen, and it's something that we should be highlighting much more. In my view, she definitely deserves the shine that other African queens get. I really think it's a shame she doesn't.
That's right.
The closest thing I could think of concerning any sort of significant recognition of Queen Amanirenas in popular culture perhaps comes from Will Packer and his supposed future production of her story. The film, called Warrior Queen, was apparently acquired by Universal Studios.
What is that? That isn't what they recently requested, the woman queen or something, woman king or something. Might be different.
And
Is it that? Check if that's the legacy of that, because this video's quite old.
if this is
For those who know, there's a new film come out called The Woman King, something like this. There's a bit of controversy around it, but we'll unpack that maybe next week. So,
true, that would be pretty big considering not many people in the diaspora know this history.
It was featuring Angela Davis, a very good, very, very good actress.
Now, I have my own speculations as to why Queen Amanirenas may not be as well known as other African queens.
Let us know why.
But I'll let you guys come to your own conclusions.
He won't let us know.
To put things in proper perspective, we have to understand the region in which she came from and why her legacy is so important.
Kush?
Queen Amanirenas was a Kushite queen from
Kushite?
Merowe.
There you go.
After the fall of the Kushite Empire,
So she's a Kushite queen from Merowe. Please remember that if your kids write it down, we'll know this stuff.
25th dynasty of Egypt.
20th dynasty, that was to hearken them guys when they invaded Kemet or Egypt. A very important story there. That's the first time, if I remember, that many magazines acknowledged kind of black leadership in that kind of Nile Valley Pharaoh-esque style. Originally, they didn't even want to say the Kushites were black in any form, but they couldn't in the end. It was, they had the bones and all that kind of stuff.
The Kushites moved their capital to Merowe. Merowe then became a lot more popular due to the ancient world talking about the warrior queens of Kush.
See the picture now. There's more pyramids in Sudan than there is in Egypt. They're a bit more smaller, a bit more narrower. A lot of them, they got their the tops blown off by Italian guys looking for treasure.
Kush,
shame on him.
Queens who literally participated in battle. Queen Amanirenas is important because she descends from a long line of women warriors, and she no doubt pulled from that energy to become the greatest queen in Africa. It was because of the Nubian queens that came before her why she was able to do what she did. So who is Queen Amanirenas, and why do I think she
Say that very fast, Queen Amanirenas. Very hard name to say if you don't know how to say it.
is the greatest African queen on the continent?
Is she the greatest African queen? Let us know your thoughts.
Queen Amanirenas came to the throne around 20 BC, and she's among the most accomplished queens of Kush because of her role leading Kushite armies against the Romans in a war that lasted about 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
The Romans under Petronius apparently wanted to tax Nubians living in Egypt, which she naturally opposed. The Romans at the time controlled Egypt, and Petronius wanted to challenge Kush and make them a sort of vassal state. Queen Amanirenas initially waged a successful campaign against the Romans in Egypt, even taking the head of a statue in the form of Augustus and burying it under her temple so her people can symbolically
Got 3 more minutes of this. We're going to listen to Queen Amanirenas as we do in the beginning of the shows. Welcome, this is right wherever your host, if you're joining now. We're Queen focused. We're on Queen Amanirenas from the Kushite empires. What they have bits of it. Yeah, from the Kush Empire. We're going to 3 moments of this, and then we're going to jump into the very, very challenging topic.
over Rome. Petronius, of course, struck back and drove the Kushites southward. 2 years later, Queen Amanirenas gathered a large Kushite force.
Hope you're listening. This is what place during history when she went up against Rome. Rome at the time was a very powerful empire, and they used to try to conquer pretty much everywhere they went. There was very few people who kicked them back. The Carthaginians did. That was a guy called Hannibal. We might cover him at some point. We might cover people who people called non-black, but there's evidence to say they were black. And Hannibal, if you don't know, he rode around the back of mountains on elephants to attack the Romans. But there was, I think, some issues with coins and had images of potentially him or his family on there, and that's why they say he's actually of Negroid background. But then some Europeans and anti-black racists say that's not so.
Force and met the Romans. The Romans, however, encountered many difficulties navigating the Nubian region and saw fit not to engage further, and thus a final battle never actually occurred. The Kushite perspective is unclear as we can't decipher the Nubian Meroitic text, but it's clear that the Romans did not engage for.
So the Kushites had their own text, which they've worked out much of the many of the Egyptian text, or so they believe anyway. But they haven't really worked out the Kushite text apparently.
Further south, and strategically withdrew. Queen Amanirenas is remembered by the Romans as being brave and blind in one eye due to her literal participation in battle. Under her rule, Kush secured its borders away from Roman ambition. A wall painting in a pyramid chapel of Meroe portrays Amanirenas with bows, arrows, and spears, holding by one hand a tethered group of 7 captives. And this is why I consider Queen Amanirenas to be the greatest queen in African history, There was no other queen in Africa who took on such a great threat, going on to safeguard the integrity of their state. She accomplished her objective in protecting her people by maintaining their independence. What greater objective is there for any monarch? The Kushites and the Romans eventually signed a treaty, and in this treaty, the Kushites got everything they wanted, including having the resented tax revoked. Her presence on the battlefield was documented by eyewitnesses, as she's described in Strabo's account as having a scarred eye or blinded eye, as mentioned before. Her bravery and composure in conflict with Rome is absolutely legendary, as she halted potential Roman ambition in the region.
Right.
According to legend, Kushite ambassadors in their diplomatic dialogue with the Romans are quoted as bringing a message from the queen. One of the Kushite envoys gallantly presented the Romans a beautiful bundle of golden arrows and said the following words: "This gift is from the Candace. If you want peace, this is a token of her warmth and friendship. If you want war, keep the arrows, because you are going to need them." It's clear that Queen Amanirenas did not appear before the Romans as a beaten foe because of the aggressive message she brought to them.
Plenty good stuff there, guys. Please, this week's Queen Focus, Queen Amanirenas of the Kushite Empire. Very important queen there. We have a nice introduction from the brother there. Check out his show. I forgot what it's called because I'm a bad guy. Let me see if I can see the logo. It's called The Home for the Diaspora. I'm sure that's not exactly called, though. I'll find it and put in the link. Anyway, so we're now going to segue into our next topic, which is, let's go on the picture, because pictures tell 1,000 words or whatever it is. Can black trans women speak on black women's issues? Oh, dear. Why are we saying this? Here's why we're saying this. I saw a video, a very interesting video this week or last week come up, and it was with, it was about, it was a kind of like a conflict between black men and black women, sort of, and it happened on Fox, and it was starring, I'm going to get the names wrong. Come on. Umar Johnson won, Cynthia G, yep. And then the woman who hosted was a Fox. And there was an individual who was a transgender person. The name will come to me because I'm very slow. Shame on me twice. I should do my research. What are we going to do? So what we're going to do, let's, what should we do? What should I play first? Now, there's quite a long thing. So let me play it in bits and bobs. I've also sent the link in. Everyone wants to jump in to have a commentary. And if you jump in when I play a video, you have the right to say pause. I'll pause it. And you can give your feedback. That's the good thing about the show. It's very organic, blah, 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 blah. So if you want to jump in, just click on the link. I think that's there, isn't it? And then we'll play. So we're going to play a video from Fox Soul soon. Umar Johnson. That's the art. And it happened in the States, by the way. And this is a discussion about transgender. No, sorry. Let me paint a picture again. There is a individual who's on here who is who represents themselves as a female. They've gone through a process of having operations and this kind. I assume I don't ask these questions, but at least from aesthetically, that is what I'm assuming is going on. And then this individual is on the particular panel to represent the gender, interesting word there, of black women. And the question of this issue is can black trans women speak on black women's issues? And the reason why this is kind of like a spin or a twist or a plot twist or whatever is because the issue the individual is talking about is about men. So this individual at one point might have identified as a man, and now they identify as a woman, and now they're speaking on this issue. And there's another lady who's on the show who's very critical of black men. Some probably say way too critical, and some say very good points to follow, but some say, oh, maybe too critical. Anyway, we shall play it. But before we play it, welcome, Brother Kel.
Welcome, Brother Raven. Excellent presentation as usual for the Black Betterment Organization. How's it going, brother?
Very good, thank you. Thank you very much. It's good to have you here. We're going to play a video. So if anytime you want us to pause it, Brother Kel, just say pause and I'll pause, right? Have you seen this video, by the way? Have you seen this one?
Yeah, there's been talks about this, brother. Very juicy, unfortunate topic at the same time.
Yeah. So let's have a sneak peek. And so we can segue into two things. One, and we would prefer if black women jumped on to give their opinion, but if there's none there, what are you going to do? So listen to see this, is it, keeping in mind that when these brothers are on there, the assumption is the two brothers at the bottom, plus maybe even the lady to the right, might not have known that the individual to top left, it was born male and has made attempts to transition to female, if that's a thing.
Let's not misrepresent.
You're the only one not being honest, Umar. You're not being honest.
Find the clip. We don't have to argue about it. We don't have to argue about it.
You just admitted to it. We don't need a
60 seconds against black men. First of all, I want to see where you all stand, just by a yes or no. Dr. Umar, is there? Yes or no?
Absolutely, yes.
Hope, is there?
No.
Dwan?
Absolutely, yes.
Cynthia G, where are you on this?
The only war is the war that black men are waging against the black community.
So is that a yes or no?
Yes, there is.
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, we have to make sure that we conduct a systems analysis and an institutional assessment. Communities are made up of institutions or the lack thereof. Communities are governed by systems or the lack thereof. Let us be very clear about something. This fratricide, this black on black crime that so many of our brothers are engaging in, let us remember Irish did the same thing. Italians did the same thing. European Jews did the same thing. And in the 1930s and 1940s, the United States government decided to upgrade them to white status, and in so doing, gave the Italians control of the fire departments in the black community, gave the Irish control of the police departments in the black community, and gave the European Jewish immigrants control of the civil service municipal jobs that they still control in many city centers today. The point that I'm making, Tammy, is that America gave Southern European immigrants an economic stimulus package. Before they gave that economic stimulus package to Jews, Irish, and Italians, they were doing the exact same thing black men are doing today, selling drugs, breaking the law, running in gangs, killing one another. But the government intervened and aided them. The reason
those listening in a bit of context, some of the sisters on the panel have been very critical about many black men maybe either committing crime or not maybe building anything. Brother Umar is trying to give a historical context of of why some of these things happen. Welcome, Sister Kushti. Is it a fact that she is trans? Very interesting question there. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. Yes. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't. This is not the type of thing I would, I would be around them in that capacity. But I've done my Google works and I've seen before and after, and I think it's quite well known. Also, Fox Soul, I think they're like this kind of modern day contemporary views in the sense of like there's a lot of black women focused kind of magazines and stuff, and maybe it comes from there was always a comfortability with homosexuality men. I don't know what it is, but you will find a lot of either homosexual men or transgendered men in the fold and in discussions with people not really knowing their background. I think that's the thing as well. I think maybe like you're not allowed to out someone. I don't know the rules. Maybe you know better than me. But to answer your questions, Kushti, yes, the individual who's to the top left-hand corner when they're there is a trans woman, meaning they were born, well, they're men. They're born a man, and most people would argue still are, but we'll get there in the end.
Black male pathology is still going on 30, 40, 50 years later, is there has been no resolution, there have been no solutions, and there have been no governmental intervention. With that being said, I'm not waiting on the government to solve the problems of black men. We as black men have to unite, come together, organize. And
very important point there. Come together, organize. This show talks about black people being collectively inadequate, and a way to reverse that is by organization and come together. So I think we should be bent upon that particular thing. How do we unite and practice utility?
Solve our own problems. Just because we can admit that the government introduced pathology into the black community, we can still take full responsibility for ending it ourselves.
Hope, I see you nodding.
Yes, because I feel.
Okay, so the individual name is Hope. So those who don't know, top left corner is the person we're case studying. This is a person who was born male and trying to transfer into a female. And the question is, can black trans women speak on black women's issues? Let's see if we can analyze this. Let's go.
Like when you can name all of these things so eloquently and so beautifully, and yet y'all still fail at being able to do these things after years and years and years and years and years of trying. Where do we find a new solution? War that we're fighting for Black men is the one that Black men are fighting within themselves. Is it about adjacency to whiteness? Is it about being able to assimilate to that white hand? Or is it really about the freedom of Black men in the Black?
Just Brother Umar Johnson didn't know that this individual was born if these things going on, and he might have used language that he otherwise wouldn't have used, and some people feel that it's quite important. But I say this is going to be very controversial, but me personally, I always promote, Black women and Black women by default being beautiful and this kind of stuff. However, I try not to individualize that statement when I'm in public. One, because some people might miscrew it and pull it somewhere else, and some women don't necessarily want to focus on beauty and this kind of stuff when we're having severe conversations, even though people are trying to be complimentary. But also, in this day and age, especially on Speaker's Corner, if you watch, you'll follow. You never know who's a man or a woman, and whatever word you want to use for that, right? So because of this, it's probably best not to do that at all. But just to let you know.
Family in the Black community, they want to assimilate to whatever whiteness, whatever white male privilege they get. And that's a large part of the problem.
Dr. Umar, you welcomed us to the show by saying Black power. Black power. Okay. Is there some truth to the assimilation that Black men want or perceive to want when it comes to this war being waged against you?
Well, there's definitely some truth to it, but I think that truth is also evident in Black women. Black men, many of them may choose to want a white woman, but many Black women choose to look like white women. So we have to look at ourselves, and we have to recognize that the pathology is not more of one gender than the other. That's the issue I have with conversations that seek to see who is more at fault, the Black man or the Black woman. It's not about who's more at fault. We rise together or we will perish together. The Black man cannot survive without his woman, and the Black woman cannot survive without her man. And the issue that I take with my two sisters' narrative is I hear a lot of criticism. I hear a lot of condemnation, but I don't hear any empowerment. I don't hear any solutions coming from either one of them. It appears as if that there is a hatred towards Black men by those sisters. Even when they said, why are we going back to 1960? Let's stay in 2022. That is so immature and irresponsible of a statement. As a psychologist, when a client comes into my office, the first thing I perform is a history on their depression, a history on their suicide, a history on their anxiety. When you go see the medical doctor, he performs a history. When you go buy a home, they perform a history. When you go purchase an automobile, they perform a history on that automobile. But when we talk about the problems that affect Black males, we're supposed to look at it in a vacuum. We're not supposed to put it in a historical context. And with that being said, the language and the narrative that's coming out of the mouth of these two Black...
Hold on. Yeah, he clearly didn't know, as he was referring to her as a queen sis. That's right. And what's also going to happen at the end of the... We're going to listen to this for a few minutes, whatever. And I'm going to show you... I don't have his response because he found out afterwards and he made a video. But I think sometime either before he did that or after he did that, the individual top left corner, I think Hope, made a video. And it was very interesting. I've played that video. I had to edit it because of the language used, but I'll play afterwards as well.
Black women is one that I think the white power structure would endorse because it totally absolves them of any responsibility for the hell Black men catch in this country.
Cynthia G, you did say, why are we going all the way back to 1960? There is some truth to history when it comes to evaluating anything or anyone. So what do you say to that?
I say we should go to the historical context, because what I have not heard from Dr. Umar Johnson, or I think his name is Dewan, is what I have not heard as they're mentioning all of the things that was done to them. I haven't heard what you did in response to it. So I would like to know, what did you do in response in history other than go to the Supreme Court and petition to have access to the men's women that you're complaining and accuse?
So Cynthia G is a very controversial influencer they've got down as YouTube. She originally came out many years speaking very critically about white supremacy, very critically, very harsh, some people would even say, maybe too harsh. And I think that seems to be her nature, where she goes in 120%, which is good for her. But I think something happened a few years back, a month back, I can't remember, where her narrative started to change from white supremacy to more so being heavily critical about black men's collective inadequacies. But she goes very far. Now, some of the narratives she says, I think, could be very useful. Some of the analyzing and even highlight. Just now, when she referred to black men campaigning for the. Let's say here again. 5 seconds over.
Do it. So I would like to know, what did you do?
Or anyone. So what do you say to that?
I say we should go to the historical context, because what I have not heard from Dr. Umar Johnson, or I think his name is Dewan, is what I have not heard as they're mentioning all of the things that was done to them. I haven't heard what you did in response to it. So I would like to know, what did you do in response?
I will listen to the wording, very important wording.
In history, other than go to the Supreme Court and petition to have access to the men's women that you're complaining and accusing of disenfranchising you.
So very important. The reason why that's important when we're campaigning to black people is because you want to, because what happens, there's certain behavior patterns that doesn't work in black people's collective best interest. And what happens is when non-black people or anti-black racists or unsynchronized black people get a hold of these concepts, they will repackage them and reword them into certain kind of words and sounding things that will make you think of like happiness and goodness and stuff. But it doesn't focus on the fact that things haven't been built. We have priorities that are being ignored, blah, blah, blah. So by the way she's wording that, the way she worded that interaction there, I think is very helpful. So when the sister does things like that, I think that's very constructive, very helpful, and can be used in a very constructive way. So just keep note of those techniques, by the way.
See, because in the 1960s, what black men were really doing, and it's been documented, many civil rights leaders have admitted to it, what black men were doing is chasing the white man's woman, trying to so-called stick it to him by way of going to their women. What you should have been doing is trying to get liberation for yourself. What you should have been trying to do is get that foot off your neck. But see, the foot is not on your neck. And the only time you recognize it being on your neck is when you want to get away with doing something that you think white men are getting away with doing. Because let's just be real. Whenever we hear about this war against black men, it's usually being brought up when there's a black man like R. Kelly, Bill Cosby. We see Trey Songz going through it, Ari Spears, when they engage in some degeneracy, and then they're getting a consequence for it. And black men think that because they perceive white men to be getting away with crimes, they want to be able to get away with crimes as well. The reality is, Dr. Umar can sit up here and list all the different ways that the system is disenfranchising black men and black men in a victim boat. But the reality is, what he cannot tell you is what black men did in response to it, because they did nothing. They laid down and they nested under the skirt of their non-black preferences, and only to complain that whenever they commit a crime, they're not getting off like they did.
So let's find out. Dr. Umar, what have black men done?
Well, number one, again, I think that it is such a shame, coming from a psychological perspective, that we seek to heal our wounds as a people by relying on unprofessional testimony by individuals who have a vendetta against the opposite gender in their community. When you hear Sister Cynthia speak, you can hear a hurt and a pain and a hatred towards black men.
One thing I would recommend brothers and sisters do when they're talking is, yes, you want to highlight the shortcomings and challenges of the opposition, but also tackle the topic they say, because I suspect she will probably now counter if he doesn't follow up and say, you haven't answered my question. I suspect just when your speaker's corner, you pick up certain kind of talking strategies and stuff. So even though brother, he's correct in what he's doing, if he doesn't answer the direct question, then I suspect she will come back.
We cannot find an effective solution to black male-female relationship issues or the oppression of black men or black women when the people at the table having the conversation have negative emotional and pathological interests in the conversation that are not.
Umar, the question wasn't about my emotional state. The question was, what did black men do in response to their disenfranchisement? Yeah, because you're trying to pathologize my emotional state, not knowing that I'm a psychologist too. But what you're not doing is telling us what Black men did.
I believe he'll get there, Dr. Umar.
May I finish?
Dr. Umar.
And I'll end it quickly, Sister Tammy. According to Mrs. Cynthia G., Dr. King was assassinated because he was doing nothing. Malcolm X was assassinated because he was doing nothing. Medgar Evers was assassinated because he was doing nothing. Fred Hampton was assassinated because he was doing nothing. That narrative that Black men have done nothing to fight back against systemic oppression, not only against ourselves, but against our women, our children, our elders, and our community is absolutely ridiculous. The cemetery is filled with Black men, names we know and names we don't know, who gave their life for the freedom, liberation, and emancipation of African people. How can you disrespect the history of so many Black men, past and present, who continue to fight? I'm sitting in a school right now that we built with all Black money, 4 buildings that we're going to educate Black men in. It's not easy to solve our problems because there's always Black people in your very same community who's fighting against what you're trying to do to help it. But in addition to that, the white power structure is always waving its wand of oppression to try to sabotage anything we do. I think that the analysis of our women is too overly simplistic, and in being such, it is dishonest.
They've done so much. You've only listed names and not accomplishments, though.
I can list some accomplishments. Okay, when it comes down to it, what have Black men done since the 60s? We've turned around and we're still inventing things. We still open up businesses. Here in LA, you got Black businesses all around town. So when Black men do build things, and we build things on individual basis, you're not going to see an NBC special about what the great Black man built. When Irv Gotti, Suge Knight, and J. Prince tried to put together a distribution, they all got charges the next week. So it's not like we don't build things. When we do build things, something always ends.
Very interesting point is you look that up when they try to do a distribution company. That's another thing. In the music industry, that even with Motown, but even not before Motown, I think it was Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke was the first Black musician to have his own label, I think. And I think he signed Muhammad Ali for some poetry kind of albums, whatever. But yeah, I think there's a lot of issues around him owning that, and he died shortly after in a very, very convoluted, controversial, peculiar way. But
he was also funding the Black movements as well, which was yeah. I even think I watched it. I think they made a kind of Amazon film on that, where I think Malcolm X and Sam Cooke and one other person, Muhammad Ali. I want to say Muhammad Ali. Yeah. I think it's them three. Is it Sam Cooke in that film? I need to look at it. I think it's Sam Cooke, Muhammad Ali, and Malcolm X. And from the autobiography, they definitely were collectively trying to sort things out, which is why they assassinated Sam Cooke, because he was definitely a part of that movement. Yeah.
Mm. So there's a film. While this guy's talking, I'll see if I can find it. But it's on Amazon. But I'll see if I can find it. But
Stuff seemed to happening, and in spite of that, you've seen the most Black business male ownership that's gone up in the last 60 years since the coronavirus. We still doing it. I personally got 3 businesses, so I don't know what you're talking about. I employ young Black men. I've helped thousands of Black children here in South Central LA. So all this Black men ain't doing nothing. Where are you kicking it at?
So how are you? So how are Black men creating all the?
I found it. It's called One Night in Miami. It's on Amazon Prime if you're a member of that. If not, I'm sure someone else you can watch it at. And that's about Sam Cooke, Malcolm X, and Sam Cooke, Malcolm X, and Sam Cooke, Muhammad Ali. There you go. It's a recent film. It's come out a few years ago.
Still costing the government $50 billion a year.
Hold that thought. I want to get Hope in here real quick, Dr. Umar. I want to get Hope in here because Dr. Umar listed a plethora of Black men that we know, and I'm assuming he listed the ones that we know so that we can identify and all agree that these Black men have done something in terms of the fight for equality in America. How do you feel about those men that he listed, Hope? Have they done anything for the Black community or not?
Most definitely. I would be ignorant to say that they haven't, right? But
so this is Hope. For those joining now, we're reviewing Can Black Trans Women Speak on Black Women's Issues? This is a few Black women who were very critical on Black men in an American show called Fox. So this individual is named Hope, and this individual was born male and made some attempt to transition to female. But at the point of this, none of the men who are still men were aware that this individual was representing Black women on this very critical topic. Let's have a listen.
I think that what we're failing to realize is that when we have this conversation about what Black men have done, the consequences are usually because of white supremacy and the gaze of white folks on us are that the Black men are then taken away and the Black women have to then sustain those things. Dr. Umar, you're right. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that you said, but you're absolutely right. It's not about the idea of who's doing it better or the pissing match of the oppression Olympics amongst Black people, but it's really about working together. The problem is what I find in working together is that the Black man wants to lead, whether he's acquired the gumption and the knowledge to be able to do so appropriately and effectively or not. The thing about it is when you're working together, we are a team. You get to lead this portion because you're better at it. I get to lead that portion because I'm better at it. And then we come to a common ground for both of us to succeed. But a lot of the times when we're talking about these succession plans and we're making
it's a very interesting dynamics happening here. We have a person who's born male and transitioned to female, and the topic is about how men are not doing anything and they're abandoning and leaving and this kind of stuff and inadequate. And the person who was born male is now female, or who's now identified as female, sorry, and they're very critical about men, and it's very interesting. Yes, for thinking about that is a matter. Well, that's what they call trans woman. For those who don't know. I'm sure at some point they're going to change the description, but right now we identify this behavior pattern as trans woman.
All of these advocacy movements in order to progress the Black family, the Black man says, listen to me or fail, right? As if Black women have nothing to contribute to that. And I think that that's where the problem is. That's where the discourse needs to happen is how do we work together so that Black men understand that we are meant to work side by side and not with me following you with my head down and saying, yes, that's our master. Because that is me being subservient to you in a way that I might not want to do, especially considering if you do not have the credentials.
Very interesting dynamic that this individual is speaking that way. Very interesting.
The know-how, the wherewithal, or the lived experiences to lead me in a way that I might be.
I mean, that alone could be a case study. Just it almost reminds me of that whole Rachel Dolezal kind of scenario. It's just very peculiar. I do think that the Black woman really has been kind of flipped upside down and used and is an easy gateway to just start anything really. Because I don't see any Black women transition into Black men who are given, and if they even exist, any kind of spotlight on anything really. And I'll just ask this question to the Black women or women of the world: when you always hear about fighting patriarchy and fighting male domination, but could the acceptance of a man transitioning to a woman be also part of that process where I don't know any of the vice versa who are in any spaces that men are. We just won't let them in there. They probably won't feel comfortable to be there. But yet, in a lot of these women and Black women spaces, you have a plethora of transition men into this, wherever they need. I don't know the words, but yeah, that's let me know that. That's an interesting thing. And could that then be everything you're fighting for? It's now almost like a bamboozle disguise that you're falling for. It's like an okie doke, isn't it? You're trying to get freedom from men, and now you're going to give the leading power voice to a person who was born that way. Interesting. Yeah, but it's like a script from a movie, isn't it? What man this little Black identity has been colonized and it's associated with rainbow crew offenders. Oh, there you go. Yeah, and that's another thing. You're seeing a lot of that kind of aggressive, so-called effeminate behavioral patterns. I don't know what interesting. Very good case study. If there's any content out there of a Black woman who transitioned to a Black man and is speaking on like black male issues and really getting in the face of other people and stuff. I only ever see it with this black man transition to a black woman with the legacy of aggression that black men tend to have. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What do I know? Hardly anything. Let's carry on listening.
Better suited to do in this point of our journey. And
Dr. Umar.
Well, first of all, I do not endorse any kind of a second-class citizenship role for black women. I believe black women have as much to offer as do black men. So I'm not sure who the queen is referring to, because I am not a misogynist and I do not support that type of narrative that said the black woman's position is only to have children and to prepare food. But at the same time, I think black women have to look at themselves, because although white supremacy has been the greatest enemy of the progress of black men, you would also have to argue that black women have probably been the greatest accomplice to supporting the white power structure in their destruction of black males, i.e. the conversation we're having right now, where two intelligent black women have yet to indict white supremacy for the role that they play in the destabilization of the lives of black men.
Is white supremacy responsible for any of the black man's plight at all?
Absolutely.
Also, we're going to play a video after this of a cutaway video that the individual top left corner did. And I just want to know if it adds to what I've been further saying. Let me read some of the comments. This is from Jay. This is crazy how trans women get a pass on sexual harassment. They are just as aggressive as men. BC, they are men. Very, very good reminder. They won't talk about that though. Don't agree with Omar there. Okay. What? I think I missed it. What did he say? That's not what he said. Just so we can cover it again.
Absolutely, it exists, and black men have worked in tandem with white supremacy since they've come in contact with it. And this is why I say in the black community we have very disingenuous, very dishonest discussions, especially when it's regarding black men, because we do have a black male worshiping culture. So what we do within that culture, and Umar Johnson is showing it today, is absolve black men from any accountability for what they've done. Number one, we wouldn't be in a system of white supremacy had it not been for black men. So if you want to go all the way back to history, then let's go back to history when black men were selling their own people into white supremacy. Let's go back into history when 16 years off the plantation, black men were worried about a war being waged on them. They were worried about getting access to white women. That's what you were worried about. And it's interesting. There's a reason why I feel like Umar focused mostly on me and Hope's attitudes, and it's because he can't accurately answer the question. He mentioned names, not accomplishments. And the reason being is because—
I think he mentioned those names specifically because the accomplishments of those people don't have to be explained.
Right, but those accomplishments are also accomplishments that I've heard Umar Johnson speak negatively about, specifically the civil rights movement and how damaging it was to black people. But now he wants to sit here and say the very people who accomplished that were accomplishing something beneficial when, in his own opinion, that wasn't beneficial and did more harm to the community than good. So I think that because we're having such a If
you have a link in the group, and if you want to join and participate, feel free. We're analyzing a video on can black trans women speak on black women's issues. We're looking at a panel of, it was meant to be half women, half men, and they're giving their feedback on the dynamics between black men and black women, and more so from the standpoint of, are black men achieving or building anything, and what is the priorities of black men? Well, the reason we're analyzing this because on the panel, even though there's meant to be two black women guests, one of those black women was born a man and has gone through a transition, which they now describe as transgender woman. So this is the issue we're describing, but we're also looking at the very direct critical firing line that Cynthia G is doing, and we're trying to pinpoint the good points and maybe the gone too far points, or maybe is a strategy correct? What can we use, if any, of these tools to help try to guide black men and black people into a more constructive path of find solutions?
Honest discussion where black men don't want to take accountability for what they've done. They want to be the victims of society, but then they want submission from the women. The bottom line is I'm not willing to deflect from the fact that, number one, black men are the greatest non-white contributors to white supremacy. Let's just be real. White supremacy couldn't even exist without black.
Let's read what Kushner says that we asked a question before, the part where he blamed black women for working alongside white supremacy to bring the black man down. Very good point. I think, and I could be wrong, and he should answer himself, there is a kind of historical narrative that when they had like the first, second, and third wave feminism, there was some people that said that some black women formed organizations or went with white women on this kind of like men versus women thing, and that was a kind of early stage of challenges in the black community, where priority was given to the white woman struggle and not the black family struggle. I think that's where once again, I could be wrong. I usually am. But I think that's where he was coming from. But either way, yes, we don't condone, we don't believe that black women work alongside white supremacy to bring down black men. But I think that might have been the indirect of what ended up happening. But once again, we can cover that at some point. Very interesting. Thanks for the content there, Sister Christian.
Compliance. They're always uplifting whiteness, biracial children, and trying to assimilate. And that's why I went back to the notion of the only time black men truly feel like there's a war against them is when they feel like they're.
Question from John Red. Middle-class liberal black women definitely do the work of white supremacy of promoting feminism and LGBT. So I guess what the individual is saying there is there are some people in the middle class who, as long as they align themselves strongly to feminism and LGBT as we see it practiced in a kind of public kind of way, then they might indirectly be contributing to certain white supremacy idealistic ideals and stuff. But that's a good topic that we can cover in the future if at all.
They're being punished for something.
Raven, could we say that it's the unsynchronized African females that are doing that?
Good point there, Brother Cal. Very good point. Brother Cal has, and that's one thing that we're going to probably push down as a strategy. It's something that I try to do when I go on panels as well, because what's happening is all across the diaspora, you're going to have black men versus black women, this tribe versus that tribe, this financial group versus that financial group. And what happens, we will use broad terms, and sometimes broad terms are good in certain aspects, but sometimes we do want to highlight that there is we will discern between synchronized black people and unsynchronized black people. So you're going to come to a nation where certain people in that nation you might find a lot of them are behaving in a way that doesn't contribute black Burman. But rather than condemn the entire nation or tribe, you say that those particular people are unsynchronized. And that way we don't want to always throw at every single black woman. Not that we're doing that. Not that that's what's being written or not said, but I think Brother Kel's trying to find ways to communicate that minimize anxiety and is more true to the fact of what we're dealing with. There you go. Thank you, Brother Kel.
White men do. At the end of the day, y'all dropped the ball. You're blaming white supremacy on your failures. We already know there's oppression, but black women are double oppressed. We have more barriers to face. You have male privilege in a patriarchal system and you can't even get it right.
Well, Dr. Umar, I think we all know your stance on interracial marriages.
Absolutely, but let me also
so please acknowledge what the rest of what Cynthia G has said.
Absolutely. I'm not sure where Sister Cynthia took history class, but if you know anything about the transatlantic slave trade was a European enterprise.
I'm talking about the sub-Saharan slave trade. You should go look into it.
Excuse me.
You address me, Umar. Go look into the sub-Saharan slave trade where black men are trading their women and children for alcohol and tobacco.
May I finish?
Go ahead, Dr. Umar.
The transatlantic slave trade was a European enterprise. It was not an African enterprise. Although there were some chiefs who participated in it, by no means did they control the direction. And
that's a narrative that you're going to... Funny enough, we will segue from this. Very good point there. The third topic of today's topic, we deal with that concept of slavery and who to blame. And we also segue that into why is it important to remember black people are alone in black challenges? And we're going to use the CNN footage to really unpack that. But for now, let's look at the last 2 minutes. And let's say it's about black men taking responsibility. The title about black men, yet black EO mission still to is that a black women? I think you type women first, but yeah, and that's the narrative. This time we're going to remember, and this is something that I would push for to all black men. I think when you talk in the masses to black women and black men, at some point, someone is going to take a hit. Someone is going to have to take a harder hit than the others. I say black men should take the hit. I think that as men, we should put ourselves forward for certain things. And even though we can see faults in collective behaviors from both men and women, I think we should focus on the shortcomings of black men. And that's a man-to-man kind of conversation. And I think the philosophy of Black Berman contributes to that by acknowledging that for many years, even though there has been tremendous challenges and non-stop challenges and probably never-ending challenges facing the black male community, we are still inadequate in the sense of if we don't know certain basic realities like black economics is important, black family is important, black love is important, black Berman is important. If we can't comfortably have a conversation, then we are falling short. If the lifestyle we're talking about here isn't widespread, then we're falling short. And if we're falling short, what has happened before will continue to happen. So I think at a certain point, a hit has to be taken. And I say the hit should be on men saying, you're right, we haven't built as many industries as we could. Yes, there has been big challenges, but we haven't got the ideology right in the black men. Black men are not being raised to value black Berman, raised to value Pan-Africanism, raised to value black on black constructive works, as in actively looking to network with other black people to create black institutions and structures that are dedicated to black people progressing. And I think what we have is this very integrated notion. Unfortunately, because black people are collectively inadequate and black people have no friends, when you describe this kind of integration concept, what you're actually describing is a form of subservience and sustained challenges, you see, and the dynamic of non-black being in a high position and black being in a low position is there. Also, I was going off on the tangent as I tend to do. You know, when we're going to do a case study of it as well. And the fact is, you're right, when it comes to music and these kinds of things, because we use music and movies as a marketing scheme, right? But you would tend to find if you have to do a ratio within music videos and these kinds of things, you're more likely to have a black man that have non-black women as the primary face of a video than you will get a European or Asian or whatever person who doesn't put their women as the primary, right? So it's something that we have to acknowledge, and this is going to be very shocking what I'm saying, but we should be at a point in a couple of months or years where it's embarrassing to not put your women group as the primary focus, as in your campaign as a man is to market the women in your group as the world's most beautiful people, just as a starting standard. Well, that's just another thing for us to tackle. Anyway, let's carry on listening. We've got a minute of this. Let's see what's going on. Given the rampant anti-male sentiments in the public culture, I think you will lose black men when you blame them for everything, especially when black women aren't doing good either compared to other women. Good point. Very good point there. I think one other thing that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show, hopefully in my behavior, if it's working at all, is the control of emotions, and also understanding that understanding shortcomings isn't a problem. It's actually a strength. You see, if you can recognize where you've gone wrong, you can have a dedicated plan to go right. So, for example, if you know that black men on apps or whatever are picking non-black women at a high ratio, if you know this, then that way you can actually have a campaign to change it. You see, right? And if you know that other people groups have better institutions than our people group, then we can use that as the catalyst to go, well, hold on, guys. Look how long we've been here. Look at the innovations that black people are doing. Do you not feel that would be beneficial if we have more ownership and dedication in these areas? But you have to recognize it, and you have to take a hit. You have to go, something has happened to make black people not operate on the same frequencies as other people groups, right? And we know what those things are, right? But we have to recognize them. Good point. Just look at the manosphere and how large. Yes. So, for example, the manosphere, I'm not really knowledgeable on it or whatever it is, and we have tried to invite some manosphere practitioners to come on, and they did. One of the challenges, a lot of them, because they seem to go through years of trauma, self-induced trauma, or whatever it might be, they lose their emotions become the burden. And one thing we're saying is, as men, control of your emotions is a very valuable asset at this time. So just losing your emotions and then blaming women, even if it was 100% correct, isn't the way forward. Leadership doesn't work that way. And I think with men, if ever we are in a circle of men and the men are blaming the women, then I say there's a problem with the men, because the idea of leadership and direction is when something is wrong, you do a campaign to change it. And blaming isn't the campaign. Blaming, for example, the sisters on the panel, one of them, her solutions are very direct, as in like, don't be with black men, don't have black children, all this kind of stuff like this, right? This is, this, I don't agree with this at all, but I can accept that solution more from a woman than a man, meaning, oh, these guys are not behaving in a way that's conducive for betterment, so I'm going to leave, right? Black men, you cannot leave. Your responsibility is the black community, and if you go down, it goes down. And you cannot run to another community, because the complaint is you're run to another community, you see? You cannot go and they use the term here, nest in another community. You have to build your own. So I said we have to take a hit, and unfortunately, this is the hit. But let's carry on listening. We've got one more minute, and then we're going to jump to the segue.
Extension of the transatlantic slave trade. So that's number one. Number two, black men resisted enslavement, not only on the shores of Africa, but right here in America. We celebrate Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser. There's literally hundreds of documented attempts by African men to liberate not only themselves, but their women and their children. So to act like we just sat there and we're complicit in our own oppression is absolutely ridiculous. The other point I want to clarify for your information, Cynthia G, you've never, ever heard me condemn the civil rights movement. The good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is a hero of mine. And despite me being a Pan-African nationalist, I take issue with other black nationalists who do want to dismiss Dr. King's accomplishment.
Very good point there. One thing I would say is, and this is an issue I've seen around, the heavy criticism of any black person who died or dedicate their life to bettering black people. We definitely want to shun away from that and not practice that.
Most definitely.
And so we have to give 10 points to Brother Umar on what he did there. But also, I've noticed when I go on certain panels, some people are dedicated to undermining certain black liberators from the past and this kind of stuff. And they have this heavy criticism of certain people, like, oh, what have they done? And then they try to sum it into like one thing, whatever. We definitely don't want to do that. And we want to come with strategies that when people do that, we have quick words to just undermine that concept and try to find a peaceful resolve, because it isn't good. Because here's what's going to happen. Most of the people that these people try to undermine, the people who are trying to critique them will never even do 5% of what they've done. And this is what it is, right? But saying that, we all want to be trying to repeat some of the actions that some of these brothers have done in the past. And fortunately or unfortunately, we might only make 10%, 20%, 30% of progression, right? But what would not be beneficial is if we dedicate our lives to helping black people, and then to have after our death, black people just undermine the 30% that we did, because for whatever reason, this isn't constructive. So it's something we have to really review, but let's carry on.
The civil rights movement was necessary because it removed a psychological scar that suggested of racial inferiority. So you've never heard me deride the civil rights movement. I support it, although I took certain issues with it. The bottom line is, when black women, black girls, black boys listen to this conversation we're having today, they're going to be confused because they hear two brothers speaking of a greater context to the problems that affect black men, and you hear two black women who want to keep scapegoating black men while ignoring the historical and contemporary systemic challenges that are constantly placed in our way.
Very good point there about Umar Johnson, but I would say to the black community, at one point we're going to have to take a hit, and we do want to talk about what we plan to do and the strategy of doing it. So yes, we can highlight that white supremacy played a tremendous 100% contribution to many, if not every, and also anti-black racism practiced by non-black people and black people, self-hating black people, unsynchronized.
Well, Brother Raven, could we say, brother, that because if we do a political analysis, brother, if we do just blame the men, right, then the unsynchronized African females,
yes,
will seem to have a more of a competitive ego mindset. and will never solve the problems. Likewise, if we blame the women, the opposite. So could we just say that it's the African family's fault, which it is?
Yes.
And the solution is we need to train and use the blueprint of African womanism, and also, African menism, so to say, and that for the men, to help this solution instead of it one taking the hit. Because remember, brother, you know very well, there's more unsynchronized than synchronized, and if we were to marry one another, which we need to, and that there'll be less of synchronized men and women. So we need to really convert synchronization. You know what I mean?
I agree. So this is a super fantastic point by brother Kel, and I say this, I agree, I can't disagree, that's facts. But I would say this though, when you find yourselves in these digital spaces, you're going to have back and forth between men and women, and the conversation will always go, well, you did this, or you did that, or you haven't noticed this, right? And I say at a certain point, someone has to take the hit in that conversation. And I say that we want to get men in a certain situation where we can admit our shortcomings and then display to the community what we're going to do. I think when you get a collective of powerful men who are constructive and dedicated, they can do that. They can say, well, sisters, I can look at what should have been happening for the last 40, 20, 50 years, and I can say, unfortunately, that we haven't come together, we haven't done that. But now we're here, we're going to do this, and here's how we're going to guarantee it. And we can quickly get out of that kind of, you did this, she did this, he did this. Someone has to take a hit in that conversation, and someone has to be the bigger person and say, here's how. And I say the leadership group, or the management group, which is the men when it comes to households and this kind of stuff, right, should take that as in, like, yes, there's been shortcomings as a community. We're not going to focus on black women's shortcomings, to which I'm sure there are plenty. We're gonna focus on the black men's shortcomings, and in this conversation, we're going to demonstrate how we do it. We're going to welcome Empress Christie to the panel. Welcome, Empress Christie. How's it going?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Super fantastic. Thank you very much. What we're going Brother Carl said hi. What we're going to play one more. It's only a minute left. Then I'm going to show. So, if, like I said, you know the rules, Empress Christie. If you want to stop and have a monologue, just say pause, and you can do that. But we're going to the last minute. Then we're going to segue to the response of the Hope individual, and we're going to make an analysis of that. So let's go.
I'm going to say this and be quiet, Sister Tammy. I got to give you this. There was a recent piece of research, Tammy, that came out. And the research said a black man with a master's degree, they did a study. They had white males who had come out of prison apply for jobs. They had black men with master's degrees, Sister Tammy, apply for the jobs. And guess what? The white males with prison history and no education were called back more than 75% of the time than black men with no prison history and a master's degree.
I'm aware of that. I am aware of that, of that survey. I am. Hope, I saw you give Dr. Umar the side eye.
It's only because I can't, you have 1,001 clips on the internet, but I know for a fact that one of the things that I was offended about in doing research or just seeing you on the internet is that you have definitely talked about your disdain for some of the practices of Dr. Martin Luther King. So to sit here and gaslight us as if most of us have not seen.
That's not true. Find the clip. Find the clip.
Well, Dr. Umar, you yourself said you had you yourself just seconds ago said you did find some things in the civil rights movement problematic.
But I supported the movement, and I still support it.
Dr. King was not a Pan-Africanist, but one of my greatest heroes. Dr. King knew it was Garveyism a get back. He was moving.
So I think this is from his page, so they've cut the rest. But what we're gonna do now is that was the video. There might be some bits where I missed and not missed, but that was, you got the crux of it. What we're gonna do after that video was, I don't know if does he cover it? No, he's just talking about. Oh, I think he went back to it. Let's just check out.
Conversation. Let us be honest. Let's not misrepresent.
You're the only one not being honest, Umar. You're not being honest.
Find the clip. We don't have to argue about it. We don't have to argue about it.
You just admitted to it. We don't need
a quick read from John Red. I think I'm saying that right. Men taking the hit is fine, but only in a context where we understand that men are the leaders of women making these arguments are against patriarchy. Yeah, I hear that. To be honest with you, I don't think the ladies are against patriarchy. I think on the panel, and I'm talking about the top right lady woman. I think the argument for what she was pushing forward was. Oh, go ahead. Did you want to say?
I just think that there needs to be a level standard. If she's given a critique, it's an issue, and I think we need to see more like what you've been doing in your series. Is that because she's doing it, she's coming from an intellectual point, and she's just doing points is an issue. I think this is just. I think people who have an issue with this, they themselves play into the gender wars. If you're just listening to what she's saying and not acknowledging her gender, it wouldn't be an issue. And this is the problem. It's like, that's why you need more men speaking out against it. I think someone said that, we shouldn't talk about it. Actually, the reverse would be, if constructive men would highlight the issues within men, then people like Cynthia G would not exist. Do you know what I mean? Like, and all I'm hearing is women this or women that. What about her points? Is any of her points? I mean, even Umar is trying to go back and forth with her because she's breaking down points. So is the issue here is that it's just women, because we shouldn't have an issue that a woman is saying points, right? Yeah, because in our community it should be fine.
Yeah. So there's certain kind of topics and things that's going to cause much confusion and controversy in the community. I think this is one that I personally take interest in, and that is mentoring to men. And I think Brother Neely Fuller Jr. is the GOAT. I agree. Has said Cynthia G is anti-black men, and I would say, that I think she made it very clear. However, what I'm aware of, and this is something we mentioned a few months back, there are a plethora of women, a handful, of black women whose content was originally pro-black and for the black man and anti-white supremacy, and then all of a sudden something has happened where now we have this movement of women who are very critical on black men. And what I'm saying is, I understand where it's coming from, because I think, yes, they're focused on unsynchronized black men, but it comes down to what are the synchronized black men doing to create the optics of synchronization, you see?
Exactly. Diverting in, why is she talking like this, doesn't help. People who can understand the point synchronized men should be saying that. They should be saying that I don't agree with this behavior amongst my fellow brothers. This is how we should conduct ourselves. So if that voice is not apparent, and then you've got the weaker or the fairer sex, quote unquote, airing their grievances and being what, quote unquote, they're supposed to be doing, which is emotional, if you want to lower it to that standard, then do you know what I mean? Like, if we just look at the points instead of the person speaking, I think this is when you just get people just rolling their eyes, especially women, because you're not even going to the argument. Now it's like, she's anti patriarchy and all of this. But okay, that might be an opinion, because there's other people who turn around to say that she's anti constructive men, right? Because all of her are bashing. If she's saying, but this is when we go into her personal politics and not going into that, again, the actual points that she's saying. So I don't know if it's just because it's Cynthia and she's infamous for that, or if she's a woman. But if all of the rhetoric is about her being a woman and not the points, do you see where I'm coming from?
I know where you're coming from, yeah. And this is what I'm trying to play chess with black men, and saying that you're going to come across this kind of narrative. And my strategy is, at the point, take the hit. Yeah, as in, like, yes, there is a dedicated force to undermine black men. And that force, that white supremacist force, has been the contributor to most challenges black people face, right? But what we have to talk about is the distinction between unsynchronized black men and synchronized black men. And then what are synchronized black men doing to become the optics of black people?
Absolutely. And I think that's where Umar used to reign, because if you look at Umar, he has a very high, when it comes to his score and things like that, initially, it was women who was supporting him. So it's just, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Because Umar, if you look through his history, he does highlight unsynchronized black men.
Yes.
He does, and he ruins them. You know, there's memes on Umar when, you know, you know, anything happens, especially like in the media or anything, and you know, a brother is dating a white woman and then something goes wrong. There's always a meme clip of Umar saying like, "I told you, brother," or something like that. So when he's ready, he knows, he highlights it. So I think that I don't know, like you said, it's just the optics, and synchronized black men who know better and do better should not place themselves in the position of defending men who are not doing well. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And as soon as you do, you're not going to get what. Where are we going on this? And how can a synchronized black woman respect you or follow you when you know better, you're doing better, but it's easier for you to jump on that side? It makes no sense.
I think Brother Kel wanted to make distinctions between synchronized and unsynchronized black men. And I think as a narrative, we could do that as a collective, saying that, I mean, even if the shocking reality is the mass majority of black men are unsynchronized as it pertains to working with other black people for a better tomorrow, even if that's the reality, right? Let us try to still make a distinction and go, the goal is to educate others to be this way, but we recognize right now we're in a very challenging position. Because somewhere along the line, all the complaints that black men and black women have are founded on something, you know. And from my observation, I'm not best pleased with collectively where black people are. Hence why a big part of my life is practicing black bearment, you know, because I'm not pleased. And but
it just doesn't look good as optics. If I'm an outside race looking, and then you look at black people and their issues, and then you look to the man of their races, and their energy is focused on blaming their women.
Yeah, so let me answer the thing. Tanky Bot said men aren't doormats.
That alone, that's what I mean. Not one point did anyone say that. You see what I mean? So it's things like that. It's just this victimism or hearing what you want to hear or playing it.
That's what I was saying, that the family should get blame instead of the men taking the hit for it. Because if you listen to what this brother's saying here, he's saying that, okay, let's allow the men to be leaders. Now, that's going to be very difficult because there's a lot of women that not only, I'm talking for the black women that have a leadership mindset, but they've had to fend for themselves. So that's going to be very difficult to do that. Okay, let me be the leader. The woman, the African woman's going to say to herself, but wait there a minute, I've fended myself for so long and now you want to come in. She's going to need to mold into that.
The black woman's like, if you want to lead, step up and lead. That's the thing. It's like this whole thing, that this notion that black women, like,
that's going to be very difficult though, because
no, but bro, this is the thing. Men, black men, especially this recent trend, need to stop talking for women because it's not helping. Right? The likes of like the Sarah and things like that, and this Manafee and Black Pill who use their content to talk on black women, talk about they know what black women are doing, and then tell women what they're supposed to do while disrespecting black women and highlighting other women is never going to get anywhere. It's the absolute definition of gaslighting. You have constant black women constantly saying, I want to rest in my femininity. I want to be a woman. I don't want to go for the struggle. Where are the black men? So that is all points stating that black women want to be feminine, don't want to do the fight, will gladly have a black man step up. Now, the issue is what we all said is the standard. If you're not providing that, or what we call unsynchronized, you're not doing the things you want to do, but yet you still want to lead, that's an issue.
So one thing I would say, and this is probably a further conversation we're going to have, and it is, I do want to talk to black men who can be offended by black women. This is very important because I need to see the numbers of black men who can be offended. And the reason is because part of the training is to not be offended. You see, I think black men and black women are in different leagues of what is to be expected of what to do. And I think part of being a man is to take harshness from a woman and still carry on. And people might think it's very controversial. But when we use terms like doormat, men ain't doormats, it's almost like this. I understand where the manosphere concept is coming from. This kind of like men coming together to, protect themselves in the best interests of men and the world's against men and this kind of stuff. But unfortunately, I think understand that the world is a competition, right? And men do operate better in competition. So for case in point, You know, I remember like when we were playing football, we had, I think I've said the story before, I can't remember, but it's like only 5 people could get in the team in a class of 40. So that means 40 of the boys were trying their very best to make the five. But I remember there was a woman coach, and she just said everyone gets to play. And now that team lost, of course. But the point I'm saying is there is a value when everyone is competing and working to achieve something. And sometimes take you have to take harsh criticism and not view it as you're a doormat or you're being. I don't think men should ever. I could be wrong. I don't think men should really. I don't think it's necessary for men to get offended by things that disgruntled women are saying. I know this is gonna sound. This sounds like alien science. No, I think. I just be honest, and I try to practice this openly when I'm in public all the time. How to control your emotions, as in like, as long as you are in the process of doing something, and you are aware of this, and others are aware of it, it doesn't matter where you stand. So even if black people, let's say, are collectively at the bottom, let's just say that that's where it is, right? As long as you have synchronized men acknowledging that and trying to move forward, then nothing can insult you because you're in the process of betterment. But if you are in a bottom position, right, and you're constantly swaying conversations about moving forward, and you're and every time you talk to someone, they talk about kumbayarism and you know and the world is great and I love everyone, this kind of stuff. Then that is the problem. You see, that is the problem. Yeah, because that means you will never move from where you're at. Yeah. So I think there is a power to acknowledgement and a power to moving forward, even if it's slow. But and as you're moving forward, you're gonna face criticism, and you can say, "Well, finger sisters or whatever. Here's what we're doing. Now we can move faster if others do this, and here's how you can contribute." But know that these men who are called this thing are doing this particular aspect that is moving our people towards this direction. And I think we want to minimize the back and forth between black men and black women. But when it happens, and it will happen, I'm charging black men to lead and to take the shot and go, okay, you're looking for institutions. We don't have any as much as we need. We're going to do it. Now, this
bro, can I just reply to the comment that's been directed to me? Because what the thing is like, even Brother Cal and Brother Raven has both said about, even when they talk about the understanding why a woman has gotten there, right? And you understand that. Now, the comment there is those black women are minority. Kushti wants to only highlight the female perspective. I'd be interested to know if Nili Fuller Jr. is the GOAT is a man or a woman, because there's a woman underneath that's saying that she agrees with me. And this is what I'm saying. This whole new thing where men think that they know women better than women is ridiculous. Like, this indoctrination of listening to these common standard points where we know where it comes from is getting ridiculous. Like, I'm a woman who's around black women constantly. There's women that are constantly saying it. If you actually care to actually listen to if you want to know a woman's perspective, listen to a woman. Like, once we've started to forget that, we are really might as well just be them. We are really not doing what is intent on us.
Yeah.
Brother Raven just said, if there's issues within the community, as men, deal with the issue. This whole title, that's what I said in the comments. The title, isn't the title something to do with black men? Why is women even getting a mention? Do you know what's strong is when men take accountability for men.
Yeah, this is the thing, and this is what I'm first to highlight is, if ever we're in a circle of men critiquing black women, then we're probably not doing our job. If there's a behavioral pattern we want black women to follow, then we have to create the direction to do it. Like I said, it's black men who have to lead in marketing to the world how black women are to be presented and how black people are to be respected, this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, don't gaslight women, and then when you get a response that's equally lashing back, be surprised about it. It's ridiculous. You're gonna get what you're gonna get. If a black woman's being emotional, in a sense, I'm like, well, that's what they're supposed to do. What is a black man's reason for being emotional?
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I do, and I might take a long time to articulate enough black men to do this, but I do want to talk to the black men who get offended by harsh words from black women. It's very important because I assume the manosphere, Where you got to understand is, unfortunately, there
Brother,
might
I see free. We don't condone them kind of things on the Black Betterment comments. You've done that a few times along the time that we've done this. And the next time I see something like that in regards to black women, those comments are just going to get disregarded.
Well, hold on. But before you do that, I think I was going to say I think IC3 might have a universal tone where he says the same thing for black men. Oh, he's done it now. Look, there you go. Yeah, I think he has.
Yeah, but he's done stuff before, bro, that I've just looked over because I know he jumps on a panel in regards to black women, and it's just that.
But family, wouldn't it be better, as I said, from a psychological tactic, to let the black family take the hit, and then we kind of groom, and then advise to get people on their roles? Because, as I said, if we just make one side get it, remember we're all unsynchronized, unfortunately. That is going to create gender wars, period, which is happening right now and will happen. But if we just say, it's the black family, so in order to fix the black family, you have to use this strategy and that strategy, but focus on the black family, then nobody's getting the hit. It's the collective.
I understand that, and I can see that as actually a good strategy. I would say, and that could be something, something that we could use in tandem. However, and it's a small however. I through my journey of talking to black people, I would say there's certain things as it pertains to the Speakers Corner community that certain behaviors I've had and certain things I do has been somewhat successful in getting through a message and getting a kind of lifestyle or idea to come across. And I think it might sound more shocking than it actually is for black men to just take a hit. I know you're saying the unsynchronized black woman and the unsynchronized black men will use this to create further divide. But you must understand that the unsynchronized person will do everything in their power. They will, if you're from the Caribbean, they'll use that. If you're light skinned, they'll use that. If you've got short hair, they'll use that. If you've got a wife or not a wife, anything you have that they can use as a division tool, they'll use. So I'm saying that one of the most powerful things I find is ownership. As in, when someone says you haven't done good, you say that's correct. Now I'm going to try to do good, and you move on. You see, as in, it's what I do, and it's like, as long as what I'm saying is truth, as long as I'm saying that I am dead. Like I said, every time I go on panels and these kind of things come up, I always say, I'm here to help black people, and I want to know the other people who want to say the same. Now, you find that many people don't want to say the same, so already they are excluded from the conversation, right? But there are those who say, I want to help black people, so it's with them we build, and it's with them, with those people, where you're going to find the best kind of result. But I think the unsynchronized we cannot be led by the unsynchronized, you see, and you are going to get many unsynchronized people talking about men are to blame, men are why the black family is finished, and then the black unsynchronized black, it's the black women, and I see a value in saying, yes, let's put emphasis on the family is the one that's taking the biggest hit, and we have to get that right. But I think once black men get together on a panel, I think all of us should be able to say, yeah, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do it. And whenever black men start putting other priorities like miscegenation and joining other
exactly in replace to building, there's an issue there. Absolutely. Like even Malcolm X. Malcolm X has got the biggest quote saying that the most disrespected person is a black woman. Black woman. Does that mean that he's unsynchronized? Does it show up him saying that as unsynchronized? No. So our leaders, our real leaders, have outed men who don't do right. They've made it a fact that when they say from how long that we need to do better by our women, but now all of a sudden it's an issue.
Yeah, and now what I ask the women, and I ask the women this, but I do not expect the same response that I would expect from a man.
Exactly.
But I'll ask a question anyway, and that is, on this journey, you're going to get a whole load of men coming from different spaces on the internet, right? Who have philosophies that they've learned, that they've used to empower them while they've had low self-esteem. Try not to react too quickly to them, because you tend to find that unsynchronized people react faster than synchronized people, which is something we need to work on. Like when we ever see someone, we need to, in a collective, come together and try to get everyone on call. But remember that, highlight a person's shortcomings, but try not to get too involved in the words they say, because, like I said, someone has to do the work to have a valuable say. And I find that when I go on many panels, the people speaking the loudest have done the least work.
Exactly.
But we've got we've got Brother IC3, so we're going to keep it clean, Brother IC3. Well,
greetings, all. Big up, panel.
Big up. Now we're gonna thank you for the contribution. We're gonna this is the last 17 seconds. Then we're gonna segue into a side video just to further analysis. So here we go. Last 17 seconds.
Seconds left on the 60 seconds left on this segment. We won't be able to find the clip on this show. But Hope, finish. Hope.
Essentially, whether we find the clip or not, we know that those things have been said, and you know that you've said controversial things. Once again, we see you moving the goalpost when you find that.
Controversial according to who?
We find, once again, because my thing is you and Cynthia can have that dynamic, but I give you the space to speak. I've given everybody that space to speak, so please don't interrupt me. At the end of the day,
you interrupted me.
Right, so that's all that was on the video. So what we're going to do now, we're going to segue to, there's a video that Hope, the individual top left transgendered woman speaker, she made, the person made a video afterwards. I don't think that person was best pleased, and this is what they made. So let's have a sneak peek, listen. Now, I've edited out all the bad words because I try to do that whenever I can, but I usually don't have enough time.
But what really burdens your grits and what really makes you upset, Dr. Umar, is that you sat there on that motherfucking live, that panel for an hour and a half with commercial breaks and all of that shit, and your little was jumping. And every time I opened my intelligent mouth, bitch, your little got a little harder. And you were just so motherfucking enthralled with this black queen that was spitting this motherfucking knowledge. And even if you didn't agree with everything that I was saying, bitch, you was down for it. Because when it comes down to the women that you claim that you like, bitch, on that panel, I was her. It's giving skin. It was giving fresh face. It was giving no cleavage. It was giving, I'm not giving it to everybody. It was giving African kente cloth. It was giving all of the things, and bitch, I set it up that way for a reason.
Yeah, I could press so much of this video. Okay, cool. Yeah, so the reason we're showing that is because this is the transgender individual who I think is going to tirade afterwards. And I mean, obviously, there's different types of men and women out there, and such, there's this conversation is split into two segues. One, the men role responsibility of men and this kind of stuff, but also should transgender be representing women? And I don't know if that behavior pattern there was that indicative or reminds me of how constructive black women communicate after these kind of debates. Could be wrong, but. This is a big question to black women, and how do you black women feel about the transgendered people representing black women? Is it okay, or is it something we need to review?
No, I don't think it's okay at all. All. Yeah, and I think, again, as a black woman, it's just another form of erasure, which we constantly face. It depends what your thoughts are. Now, if this person was born a man, many within our community sector would classify them as a man. So yet again, it's just another man in another form speaking on black women.
Pattern.
And I find it so fascinating when the argument goes towards black women, like, what are you going to do about it? Now, I don't let that gaslight me, because I know my presence and I know my standing and in my thought. And if my thoughts is that, then to me, that is just another man doing erasure. Now, do I advocate for black women to go up against men? No. Like what we've had these conversations before. So I would say, if it's going to turn to it's a black woman's responsibility, it would be very easy for a black woman to turn around and say, no, this is a black man dressed up as a woman talking to women. Now you want a woman to now do a fight against a man. Again, where is the man in this equation?
Let me try to add a bit of perspective to this. Very frankly, well spoken. This just so It's a very tricky situation now. So we start this conversation.
Where is the man?
Yeah, we do start this conversation by asking the women, are they best pleased with this? Because we always want to ask women how they feel about certain things. Because unfortunately, there are a few sisters who might hold media spots, or they might have shows, and they allow certain kind of things to go on. So we never want to say we want to bogart and dictate to them what they should and shouldn't do. But we're saying in our space that we're seeing a pattern here. And, on our shows, we're going to try to regulate that. We kind of want Black women to speak on Black women issues. And this might actually be a Black woman issue. So definitely. But in the forum, let us know your feeling if you're a Black woman. What are your views on trans women representing women, especially in these heated debates about Black men? That's a very interesting twist there. Let us know, are you for or against it? If you are a Black woman, I suspect if there are any Black trans, if you're a Black trans as well, let us know, just so we see if there's a balance between how you identify and the things that you say we should do. But yeah, very interesting point. Very interesting point. Well, we're just looking at what we have left. We've got one more thing. So we're going to come back to this topic because it's a very important topic. I've got one more video to show on the third topic. Shall I move that, or does anyone want to contribute to this topic before we come back to it?
I just think, again, it's dangerous to say that Black women are saying that they want trans Black men to talk on Black. This is what I'm saying. That where are you seeing this? Where are we really getting Black women saying, yeah, you know what? In regards to the issues that Black women face in regards to childbirth, are 5 times more likely to die in childbirth. You know the great person to talk on that? A trans Black man. Are we seeing that? Because I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing what the media shows, and when the media shows Black community in other places, we don't stop that down to the white woman. The Black woman, out of all people, is at the helm to make all these decisions. But all of a sudden, Black women are just allowing trans men to talk on their issues. It's just ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? I can't. It's things like this. Like, this is what I'm saying, bro. If this is the talking factor, or if this is the element that that Black men are allowed to get pushed, and unconstructive Black men allowed to get pushed, you're not going to get anywhere, bro, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, this looks like a topic we're going to have to review and come back to, because it seems to be a very important topic, and we definitely want to get the opinions of more Black women. And the reason we don't get opinions, because I'm aware of a community of Black women. This is not the minority, I don't think so, who are very inclusive. And the reason I want to tackle the inclusive community, people who is because they remind me generally of the Black community as a whole, in the sense of very inclusive, very give away your power, very come one, come all.
Absolutely.
And I think this behavior pattern doesn't tend to work in the best interest of Black people. And now, there are particular needs, like, that childbirth and this kind of stuff, that only Black women can really represent.
Exactly.
We're
really talking about women issues. Let's talk about women issues, and let's find out where anywhere that a Black woman would be like, yeah, let's have a trans man talk on our issues. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous to even push that notion when Black women are constantly complaining about erasure. Constantly.
I just watched it. Women support transformers the most. That's reality. It seems that she doesn't want to blame the women for anything.
Even when anyone know that? Okay, but did anyone know that this individual was a trans? This person got presented as a woman. Dr. Uma didn't even know, but no one's talking about that. But somehow women are supporting her. This person presented as a woman. For everybody concerned on that panel, that was a woman. I don't know why women are supposed to have these super and women have a lot to talk about, but the whole topic was about men. You can't just stick on men for a topic. When it's time for the women, let them sit down, go into a space where women are taking accountability, and then talk about it. But if you're using this, where this woman presented as a woman, all the men and everyone else thought it was a woman, but now it's the woman's fault. Come on, bro.
So it's something, and we're going to try to really discern and do things in stages. So one, we want to tackle how black men navigate and try to minimize this, but also we do want to talk about particular podcasts, because some of these things seem to be coming from a podcast, and the research we have to do is who is co-signs, because there's a strategy. The strategy is you have a topic that's about black women heavily critiquing black men, and you have two guests, and one of your guests is trans. So
exactly.
So
and
who?
Not even letting no one know. No
Yeah.
one knew.
No one knew, and I don't know if Cynthia G knew, because I think I could be. I don't know this woman. I don't know her views on this particular thing, but I would be interested to know what her reviews on this individual representing black women, especially when the critique is. You look at black men as a whole in the past and present. You're talking about ancient Africa, modern day, in England, in Canada, in Peru, but yet there is a black person who's born a man. So do they qualify for all the criticisms you're doing, or could black men escape responsibility by being transgendered? That kind of, we don't want to go there, because I'm just saying, yeah. And that's the question I can only ask the sisters who are critical of black men, because if the answer is no, regardless of how you're born, you have to do your man's role. Then this individual here doesn't get to escape that responsibility by transitioning into a female presented individual, right? But that's just another deep talk we have.
And
now,
just 1 second, because I know you want to go on to the next segment, but I do want to say as well that this transgender thing as well, like I find it fascinating that when you look at the statistics for transgender, there's a very small minority of them that are black. Yes. But yet when you see transgender represented, you're more than likely to see a black person at the front of that campaign. Yeah.
Yes.
So again, whose powers of that be? Is that a black woman's power that be? The wise of us knows it's not. Yeah. And number two, we all know that if you say one thing against homosexuality, the pink pound, LGBT, the letter community, you're gonna get done, like real time done, like how the Jewish do you. Yeah. So again, if we're talking about leading and doing the front, now the woman's supposed to come out and do that. So this is why I understand what you're saying. I even to a point understand where Brother Cal's saying when it comes to doing it as a family, because then maybe when people talk, they can think critically and think within the dynamics of a family, who's supposed to lead the charge, right? Who's supposed to step up? Maybe if they see it that way, some sense would knock into their head. But honestly, let's look at the bigger agenda. And let's not put blame and shoulders on people who at one time you want to lead a charge and at the same time you want them to be submissive. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
especially when you're focused on an issue that is titled about black men again.
Yeah. So once again, I'm interested in finding black men, and some might come from certain kind of new lifestyles, what it is. But I do want to tackle black men who find themselves heavily critical about black women, and that is that if your solution is to be critical of black women, then you might be missing certain kind of realities, right? Certain kind of helpful guides that we could probably lend you. And one thing I would say to men, I know some people think it's controversial, is to not be offended by anything a woman says. I know this sounds like alien science. No. Is to listen to the complaints, regardless of how wild or how correct it might be, and then respond with a solution, or a solution that's being practiced. We should always be solution based. If black women are complaining about non-institutions, what are our responses to that? So they're saying, why there's no institution made? We can say, okay, well, unfortunately, the white supremacist has been blowing up all our stuff. However, we've now recognized that's what they're doing. So our new strategy is to do this, but we're going to need the community to do this. So we can't move forward if we don't ABC, you see? And so that way we can say, here's what we're doing, but here's certain behavioral patterns that many black people are doing. So we need us all collectively to reform this behavior, because we can't reform this behavior and move forward. So we can break it down to splices. We can say, okay, we have to take responsibility for the optics of black people. So any opportunity we have, let's try to be constructive, and let's also try to represent the black family as the primal. Let's try to say, if we make Any kind of media, we want constructive black man, constructive black woman, constructive black family. We want the black man to be seen as the black woman. Whenever people get in a position of power and adverts are being made, and movies are being made, and books being written, we say, actually, we want the optics to show that the black man's primary is the black woman. You see? We don't want to lead in the optics of picking non-black women. We don't want that. That doesn't help a people group. That works against the people group. Regardless of what you are or aren't practicing, these should be basic knowledge about people groups, innit? The optics. What is the primary? Yeah? And unfortunately, black people practice benchmark rebranding, where we take a new idea and we make that the norm. And we can't really can't do that. We can't take an easy idea and make it the norm, right? Let's take the hardest idea, the most challenging idea, the idea that is the goal, right? And let's achieve it and be dedicated to it, right? And let's work together to always be black focused. And I think that should be the new thing. And whenever we go on these panels or we go in places and we're talking, it's about how do we always end the conversation with constructive black man, constructive black woman, black institutions, black betterment, black ownership, right? Black optics, constructive. And we don't want to obviously have any kind of civil war, and we definitely don't want to be playing the blame game. And I charge men with the responsibility of leading that. I charge men. And from experience, I know that at some point, you're going to have to take a hit. This is experience. And I'm preparing men to take that hit. But if you can follow the path I'm leading, it will do nothing to you, because you know that as long as you're starting, consciously starting, nothing can harm you, because you are actively trying to improve. And that's the most important thing. When you talk to many of these brothers and sisters, but let's focus on the brothers for now, right? And you ask them particular questions, you realize they're not trying to improve. I'll give examples. I'll never say names. I go on certain panels and I talk to certain brothers who you would assume are pro-black. You would assume do that. But when they talk about actually, I've got friends from all over the place, and I'm never going to put any person above them. When I practice business, it ain't a black business, it's a business. Don't know what that means. And blah blah blah. You're not from this country. You come from here. Blah blah blah. It's all this kind of stuff, and it's like, bro, what's your views on black love? And it's like, oh well, you love who you love. What's your views on black business? Oh well, any business is a good business. Because this guy, as black as he might be, this guy isn't. He might be your brother in genetics, but he's not your brother in ethics. You see, so you have to know who these people are, because as far as I'm concerned, the synchronized brothers can take that hit and move on, isn't it, and be constructive. But a hit's gonna come. I know we don't control the media, but as long as the optics ain't in our favor, we're gonna take the hit. But the question is, when we take the hit, what are we saying to let them know that, well, these guys, they're oppressed, they're beat down, but when you talk to them, they know what's going on. So when you talk to this man who doesn't have an institution, who doesn't have, a collective base here and there, he's trying to get that. When you ask him what's most important to him, he tells you the black family. He don't tell you, oh, the world is one, kumbaya, let's all move together. He don't tell you that business, whatever. He tells you, I'm trying to start a black business, I'm trying a black family, I'm trying second generation my wealth, I'm trying to get collective people to come together to form some better tomorrow. And that's what I'm trying to say, brothers and sisters. I know it sounds long-winded, but I had to get out of there. Do you want to say something?
I think that was a great point, bro. Absolutely. I was agreeing for you all throughout, yeah. It's definitely about focusing on the black family and not getting tied into these things that are not of us. Like you said, it's just an easy way. I love the way you said that we take these new notions and then rebrand it and act like it's us. It's ridiculous. Especially when you find out when some of these things have gone through, which if people had followed your series, you can find out, the rhetoric that these things come from, like incels and red pills. I mean, the meaning of incel is involuntary celibacy. I mean, why are black men even taking that on? Do you know what I mean? And this is why you can't take it seriously, but I get what you mean, that people come from different mindsets and different philosophies and theories. And it's just that I don't think they don't realize how easy it is to find out exactly who they're listening to or what they subscribe to, because they're just regurgitating the same old points.
Yeah. And one thing we have to understand, unfortunately, in this day and age, sometimes the most damaged people have the biggest voice.
Especially in our community.
Yes, yes, and also you got to understand that. I mean, if we can use a concept just to make this idea make more sense to the viewers out there, right? It's almost like if you have a rapper today, right, and the rapper goes and makes a song, and the song's about shooting everyone in his community, disrespecting his woman, and selling drugs, whatever, right, and selling poison to the community, he could go platinum. He could have a video. In the video, they could be performing all kind of sexual acts. He can look like he's gonna assassinate the world. He can use vulgar language all throughout, right? Can make a lot of money. Now, if that person wants to talk about how much he loves black women, black economics, reparations, black empowerment, all this kind of stuff, the chances are he won't be supported, right? Yeah, at a certain level.
And they even put him in a little block in a little box. Now it's neo soul or roots or do you know what I mean? It's
yeah. So
it's not even mainstream anymore.
There you go. So what I'm saying is that shows you that there's it is much more challenging because the dominant society prefer this kind of narrative, this kind of like narrative that doesn't work in black people's collective best interest, right? So that means
absolutely.
Yeah. So when you see these unsynchronized men or women, well, let's focus on the men who are just saying very anti-family, anti-women, anti-behavioral patterns, right? Well, that's going to be much more alluring on the internet than a person who's talking about pro. Like I said, I will get in more arguments talking about the black woman being important than a person saying black women are useless, right? So this is what we're dealing with. Yeah,
that says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah. So remember that, and that's why I keep saying that the most important aspect, and this is what I hope I'm teaching everyone who follows me, and that's this word of consistency, but within the 4D values is dedication. We'll use dedication, right? Because what you'll find is since Brother Raven has come onto the Speaker's Corner scene, which is many years ago now, right? My message has not changed. My delivery has not changed, right? But everyone else who's come, they have drastically changed their message.
Absolutely. And it's not from other people. People are not silly to that. People notice that.
And so they might come and they're talking about this black God, this black religion, black people, this. Next thing they're talking about women, this, women, that. They might come and talk about, black gangs, this, and next thing you know, it's the chemtrails and climate, whatever, right? And that's fine. I mean, if you can tie it into black Batman, that's so good for you. But what I'm saying is dedication, and commitment. These things people see you, and that's why no matter what happens, no matter where things are going, there's a constant in it. Constructive black man with constructive black woman makes a constructive black family. You see, black economics, black each one teach one. What are your views on black people progressing in unity and utility? You see the two U's, unity and utility. What are your views? Ask them, innit? Even if a person stands with me for 20 years and I say, is constructive black man with constructive black woman a good idea or a bad idea? If they start talking some funny stuff, you know that they're not synchronized. Yeah. Now I say this because I came on the scene alone. I have no best friend in Betterment. Yeah. I can't be swayed to undermine the basic tendencies of progression amongst a people group. That's the family. I can't be, I can't represent black people and then talk about situations that do not create black people. I cannot represent black people and not talk about how to sustain black people, economics, right? So it's like, regardless of how clever a speaker is, regardless of how well spoken or how much choose they have or whatever it is, if they're not, if their views on black love, black economics do not synchronize, then it's a waste of time. And what you will find is all these concepts of hating women, aliens, chemtrails, whatever it might be, you open the door for these ideas because we haven't got the foundation right, in it. Constructive black man with constructive black woman makes a constructive black family. The foundations.
Exactly. The basics.
The basics. And that's why I say we're collectively inadequate, because every so-called pro-black person, if they can't even get that right, that's why we're failing.
Exactly.
You see? Let's get the basics right. And that's why when I come, I'm not aggressive, swearing, pro-black. The non-black person is this, the non-black person is that. I'm very calm, very clear, because I know that will be the marketing optics, right? And anything else I'm saying that's constructive will be polluted amongst that, right?
Exactly.
You see? So no matter, I will be calm and collective, but I say the same thing. Constructive black man, constructive black woman. Boom. Yeah. So that's
And
what
I will say one point, and I know it's probably not going to be popular and trigger some people, but I will say that I think the reason why this manosphere, incel, red pill rubbish is blowing up so hard. We've all agreed that these people who subscribe to this notion are unconstructive. So I think it's just a get out clause to not do the job that they're meant to do. And now you've got a bunch of excuses and reasons to why. Or another thing to use, as you said, as a distraction. That's what I'm coming to find. Because the people who subscribe to this notion, and at one point did Cal or yourself come off the mic and start getting emotional of what I said, because it doesn't apply to you. And you've acknowledged it around you. So those who do, I think, hit dogs holler. And I think that when you have someone like Cynthia G, who just, and we should always reiterate that she was the most fundamentally pro-black person on the internet at her time, right? And now she is hitting back with, that's what I'm saying, she doesn't do the emotional stuff. But when she hits back with the intellectual stuff, they just go mad. And it's only the hit dogs that holler. And that's why I respect Umar. And even I've heard her say to a certain extent, she respects Umar, because you don't see Umar when he's even if he's up against an unsynchronized black woman, he'll never call her out of her name. You know, he never goes, he has a standard of code within himself. His code is not dictated by the standards of the person that he's speaking to. That person could go all the way down to the dirt, and even if they are, and they warrant those kind of words or titles, he won't call it to them. Not because they're not that, but it's because he's higher.
Well,
and that is what that has to give you have to give a respect to a man, especially a black man, doing that. When men walk, just like women wants to walk in their femininity and they want to be a woman, when a man walks in his masculinity and bees that and articulates that, there's no greater strength. That's why there's such a lack of them. That's why they're always trying to knock those men down. That's why, like what you said, the others always get highlighted. And why even when you or Cal come off mute to say boo, you get attacked, straight away.
So just to finally understand, because we're 2 hours have also passed very quickly. I'm well aware of topics that engage the audience in a kind of controversial kind of way and stuff. And one thing that you have to understand is this platform was never set up to be popular because of controversial stuff. Now, from a marketing standpoint, these are good things, right? But what I'm saying is there is a kind of constructive solution based back and forth I'm trying to create. And I do understand when you tackle certain topics, miscegenation, trans, womenism, whatever, and black male, black women dynamic, whatever, and these things do have a very emotional, high anxiety connects to them. And we're going to tackle them. And it looks like we will have to return to it. But just to further put out that, there is a way this broadcast could be very popular. I can literally pick 7 things, so I know we'll get a reaction. Maybe diss a religion, maybe diss women, maybe whatever it might be, right? And then this will then go through the internet and be, oh my God, there's a back and forth. But we're desperately going to try to not have that. So if we ever invite people from certain spaces to speak, we want them to come on a solution-based tip. And we have to ask them, like, do you see any values in constructive black people coming together to build? Because if not, then you're just here venting out of rage and then we can unpick your rage because like I said, we recognize victims. And I do say to both men and women, whenever you have people who just shout out certain things, it's hard to do this, but try to have a mercy, because there is a certain pain that certain people feel and they might not be in the same place as everyone else, and we have to understand that these things happen, right? So it's just a thing I like. Now I've got a 2-minute video. We've got 2 minutes left, right? But we're gonna go to the third topic, family, which is why is it important to remember that black people are alone in black challenges? The reason why I was going to show this because I came across a video today, well, whenever it was, and it was Don Lemon. And I was going to read out the comments, but we might do another time. And that is Don Lemon asked a question about should the royal family pay reparations, and the woman tried to bamboozle him. So let me play this.
Was rounding up,
but tried to bamboozle him, but there was thousands of comments where people go, "Well done, lady, you showed him," blah blah blah. But let's just have this.
If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages.
So let me reparations. So King Charles inherits a vast wealth of English royal family. Prince William now takes over his father's £1 billion estate. And I think Don Lemon was asking about, well, will he pay any reparations?
Need to be paid. We need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed.
So now what's happening is this lady, I think they say she represents the royal family in some way. Maybe I don't know, directly or indirectly, but she's obviously defending the royal family. And what I'm trying to have people observe here, obviously, it's collectively black people, my friends, whatever, but it's the narrative now that you're going to find, and they're going to use this new movie coming out plus other stuff sources to try to say, well, actually, black people sold black people. So the first reparations needs to come from the African nations, whatever. But she does something else that I want us to observe, which is very important that we acknowledge. So when she does it, I'll pause it. So have this
pages.
So listen right now. CNN anchor Don Lemon has been schooled. Okay. So another thing. This is from a Sky, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch. Something like that. He's an Australian guy, but this is Sky News in Australia. So when you go and you see the narrative of how they depict black people and talk about black people, it's very consistent to this. And also read the comments. It's thousands of serve him right, whatever. But so I'll read out because it seems to be text based. CNN anchor Don Lemon has schooled by the royal commentator, Hilary Ford, which the name is there, after suggesting that the British monarchy pay reparations. Music, picture of his father. And then they show the CNN host Don Lemon requested why the royal family's fortune has not been spent on reparations and was schooled. So this schooled, like, it's interesting. I don't know if this is to defend whiteness or defend the royal family, or is this just to undermine black progress anyway, but this seems to be a kind of like, oh, you've been schooled. Following the Queen's death, King Charles inherits a substantial fortune possessed by the royal family. Very evil-looking pictures. I don't know if they delivered it yet. Are they deliberately picking these dodgy-looking pictures? His son William also inherits his father's $1 billion Cornwall estate after succeeding the Bachelor. The king inherits some of $42 billion in assets, including $500 million from the late. Let me skip to the bit where they're talking about a lot of writing. Who's this? There we go. So I want to stop it when she says the thing that's important. So let's go.
Well, I think you're right about reparations.
So she started really good. This is the very good debate tactic. Agree with the person, but you're actually going to throw it back at them. So this. In
terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa, and when across the entire world, when slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation.
So the reason we have to be careful as well is because Cynthia G also mentioned black men sending black men. And what I'm saying is, what will happen, and Brother Cal has highlighted this, whenever there's a disagreement between black people, or optical disagreements from unsynchronized black people, whatever, the synchronized white person or non-black person will use it to tell a narrative where black people have to pay for their own downfall. You see, so in
the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce. Was the British in Great?
Now she's saying that actually, it was the British who tried to stop the enslavement of people, and they fought for this. One analogy you can use is the concept of if men go around raping people and they rape, and then one day they say, okay, I'm gonna stop. There's halfway through the rape, is that like a good thing that the people who were raping now stopped? Because essentially that's what they're saying. The people who enslaved then stopped, right? And this is the medal they want. Now, the reason why you have to use terms like rape and pillage and everything, because racism, black people are the face of racism in the sense of the most oppressed group. And because black people are the face of this term racism, optically, no one cares about black people. So you then have to switch it to something that doesn't affect black men as much, although rape was something that affected black men. Rape is something that people still see as devastating. So when you change it to that, then you put it in a different context. And also rape is part of racism because many black people rape because of racism. But it is what it was. But this is a technique that I recommend because like I said, no one cares about black people. So slavery doesn't mean nothing to most people.
Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas.
So this is very important what she's about to say now. Let's have a sneak peek, Bon Appetit.
Trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages. Absolutely. That's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think.
So if you just caught that, what she's saying is not only should the black Africans pay for reparations, but they should also pay the so-called Europeans who went there to help the Africans, you see. So this is what I'm saying about collectively black people have no friends. But she is very on code for her community, you see. Very on code. And what she does is no different to what the Queen actually does herself, where the Queen, I give props to the Queen for being well-spoken and having the most manners from an optical standpoint in comparison to her family. And I think that should be appreciated, and that she didn't really make a fool of herself publicly, right? But what I would say is the fact that the Queen never acknowledged many of the atrocities that was done in her lifetime and in her name and stuff is her being on code, you see. And the code meaning we're taking no damages, we're taking no L. Yes, my son might have done these things, but he'll get away with it. I'm not going to mention it. My people come first. This woman's doing the same thing, but she's going a bit extra now. She's actually trying to get. So the black people have asked for reparations for murder, rape, and killing. She's now twisted, said, yes, you will pay for your own murder and killing. Plus, you also pay for us who tried to stop it. Very interesting thing there. But then when you read the comments of the thousands of comments, you have a on-call response. Well done, lady. You told him. Shame on him. I bet he'll never ask that again. So these are the kind of comments you want to give to your unsynchronized black people who kumbaya, we all love you, but you want to show them these comments and go, are these the people you're trying to network with? Are these the people who are your homies, your number one homies? Because this is what I see consistently, right? So let's have one more.
Same time.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I don't know if this was the last comment she threw in there, but maybe he wasn't best equipped. But the average Pan-Africanist or black better would have responded to that. And that's why I think we mentioned earlier, who is representing when it comes to these very important questions. Don Lemon is a same gender loving person who's, I think, has a European husband. So I don't know how connected he is to black issues. I don't know if he's really pro-black at all. So I don't know if he's the best person to be asking these questions. I don't know why it came up from him on this CNN Sky News or whatever it was. But we want to be very careful of who asks these questions because we never want, once again, control the narrative. She's controlled the narrative that the enslavers were the saviors, you see, and the enslaved were the perpetrators. And she has a smile on her face. So what I'm saying is, be very aware of this. Remember, I'm going to go back because we're at the end of our show. And I keep telling you, a lot of people think I babble when I say this stuff. But when I start the show, the most three important things are here. Let's break it down. Black people are collectively inadequate. Collectively, black people have no friends. Constructive black man, constructive black woman makes a constructive black family. I let you know now. These three important information, we have to give them a word, whatever they call it, right? They will help you. They will navigate you through life of helping black people. And from every show, you will find it connects to these three things, you see? And we can say the last one definitely connects to collectively, black people have no friends, you see? No friends, absolutely not. Not one. Not one. There is no people group who support black anything. And whenever you get an unsynchronized black person who desperately tries to crowbar this unity in people's face, you must see them as unsynchronized, and you must kindly let them know that we are brothers in genetics, or brothers and sisters in genetics, but not brothers and sisters in ethics, because we know better. Now, unfortunately, collectively, black people have no friends. Anyway, we've come to the end of the show. We've had a great show today. We have to thank Brother Kel, Sister Empress, and also IC3 came in for the countries they've done. And we look forward to them. And I would say, would you like us to maybe unpack more this topic we brought this week, or should we let it die? This trans representation and men stuff. Let me know if you want to follow up in the group. But do you guys have any final words or any monologue you'd like to do? Because it is your time.
No, it's a great show. I came in late, and it's good. You keep up the good work. Keep up the good work. You're doing well.
No, I think I didn't see that. I think it's amazing how the slave trade and the history of slavery is just getting remixed. It's just amazing. The fact that she can now stand on public TV and say that these people who apparently rowed the ships out to stop slavery should get reparations is just. I mean, I'm not surprised because of what they do, but it's just the audacity. It's just actually laughable. But I do agree, if they had somebody, like, for example, if they had a Dr. Umar that they were talking to there, he would have shut down those points, like, so again, I agree. We need more constructive people at the helm of talking on behalf of us.
Yes.
Yeah. It's so important, because that should have just got shut down, really.
Yes.
That was easy to shut down. I just couldn't believe that she was even given that much room to even go that far.
Yeah,
but as you said, it's the platform that they're on.
Yeah.
Her voice, they wanted to realm higher. They wanted her voice to be the fact, and they got what they wanted, and he did what he was meant to do, and just gave a very soft response. Even thanked her, and he even sounded defeated in his voice at the end. So it was just like, yeah, it's so important to oversee the powers that be and what they're doing. And I do agree with you that the way that you took it back to the gender stupid wars and the transgender thing, if we have an issue, what they'll turn around and say, well, they don't even like each other.
Yes.
This is our example. So we just feed in, giving them more and more evidence to why, to justify the rubbish that they say about us.
And we have to big up Brother Kel for highlighting that, as in, like, showing that these things will be used these as optics to undermine black progress. So we have to tread very carefully when we have disagreements in public. It's challenging, especially when you deal with unsynchronized brothers and sisters, right? But I think if we look at Brother Umar Johnson's example and Brother Kel's example of always being polite and trying not to call people out their name, and try to let them know that, our disagreements, there is a greater power above it that is at the helm of it, and we need to never forget that. And there's certain brothers and sisters that do really well in the public space, and we'll try to bring some videos of showing. I think I showed a video of Brother Muhammad Ali when he was with Brother Cy Stone on some show from the 70s, and how he was desperately trying to be kind and correct to Brother Sly when he was fortunately intoxicated with many types of drugs and talking unsynchronized behavior. And he was still kind to him. And this is a very important technique we have to do. But Brother Kel, did you want to say something?
Yeah, we have to teach our people to generalize on non-African people with a political, scientific strategy without being emotional. Whether they're poor, rich, in religion, gender, sexual orientation, behavior, any political movement, we have to generalize all of them. That video is definitely why we need to. because they don't take responsibility for what they do. And those people are in religion. You know, if you don't take responsibility for your sins, then that means you can do whatever you want. So, yeah, man, we have to teach that and codify it.
His brother Cal comes out of the bangers, you know, because it's true. We should generalize them because it's so true. Because when you see unsynchronized people, they'll always give you their antidotal. Oh, well, this person was there for me, and this person, that, you know. Then we don't generalize. They don't generalize it. You know, it's always this special white person that came from the sky, like you always say, bro, and saved the world. You know, but when they talk about us, they generalize. So. Yeah, that is a strong point. That's why it made me giggle, but it's true.
There you go. So we'll give thanks to the panel. We give thanks to the listeners. Next week we shall have our fifth queen. Big thanks to Brother Kel for compiling a list of queens. If there's any other queens people want to tackle, leave a comment. We shall put them in. But that's right. Until next week, we are going to stick to 2-hour show. We might retackle this transgender issue, or we might also further unpack this narrative. Or maybe we might talk about the science of like optics and how it will be, how our disagreements will always be used against us. And I haven't seen this film. There's a film called The Woman Queen. I think there's a bit of a stirrance about it. It's
Woman King.
Woman King. Sorry, I'm shame on me twice. Woman King. It's got very good actors in it, but I think once again it's sponsored by Europeans and written by Europeans. So you have to be very cautious when they're writing tales, because there's usually a narrative they try to push. And we can look at this in history from, like, for example, when black people owned BET and then when non-black people owned BET, how it changed. And that itself is a very good study. But until next week, we'll find what we're going to do.
I did ask for Cress as the sister Cress Wilson, like right at the beginning. So if we can fit her in, that would be great.
She's quite important, so we might have to do like a bigger one on her.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Yeah, because she's quite important. Like, not that all the others are important, but from a modern standpoint, her work has contributed to so much of the modern YouTube community when it comes to tackling anti-black racism and white supremacy. Like, literally, I think her and Neely Junior Fuller as a pair, their books have been really dissected and used in a very valuable way. So I definitely want to give her props in the most epic way possible. So yeah, she might be the last queen we cover. I'm not too sure. We'll see.
Okay. Well, great show. Thank you, Bri.
Thank you, family. Thank you, you three. Hopefully you'll be here next week. But until then, be constructive and help black people in every time you can. Have a good one.